Anything other than that's nuts.
I'd like to call this meeting of the Princeton City Council to order. Clerk, call the roll.
Mayor Mabry
Here.
Councilmember Newman. Gomez.
Here.
McCall.
Here.
McCransky.
Here.
Would you please stand and join us in the Pledge of Allegiance?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. We're going to go ahead now and start with, public comment. Public comment period is available for the public to speak at the beginning of the meeting as well as at the end. If you'd like to speak, just come up to the microphone and just state your name. We'd be glad to hear what you have to say. Is there anyone who would like to speak tonight to the council on public comment? Okay, seeing none, we also will encourage you to speak at the end of the meeting if you'd like to. We're going to go ahead now and go for approval of minutes of the regular council meeting, please.
Move that we approve the minutes from the February 20th, 2024 meeting.
A motion and a second. Is there any questions or comments from the council? Seeing none, clerk, call the roll.
Councilmember Gomez.
Aye.
McCall.
Aye.
McCransky.
Aye.
Mayor Mabry.
Aye. Thank you. Now we're going to go to invoices with City Clerk Pete Nelson.
For this cycle in the Department of Accounts and Finances, we have invoices totaling $54,655.17. In the Department of Streets and Public Improvements, we have invoices totaling $63,886.61. In the Department of Public Safety, we have invoices totaling $129,688.10. And in the Department of Public Property and Utilities, we have invoices totaling $153,348.52, for a grand total of $401,578.40. Mayor, all council members present have confirmed their reviews of all invoices and now are submitted for disposition.
Move that we approve the invoices as presented.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Is there any questions or comments from the council? Seeing none, clerk, call the roll.
Councilmember Gomez.
Aye.
McCall.
Aye.
McCransky.
Aye.
Mayor Mabry.
Aye. Thank you. Now we're going to go to a presentation from the Illinois Municipal Electric Agency. And we've got some distinguished gentlemen here representing that organization that we've been proud to be a member of for how many years?
40 years.
40 years?
Jeff was like a pup back then.
Okay, very good. So would you please come up and we'll have you come to the microphone and introduce yourself? And
Yeah, I'll get started. My name is Kevin Gaten. I'm the president and CEO of the IMEA. We're going to start off with Mike Denon, who's our vice president of member of gas services, and Sean McCarthy is our energy services representative, but not for very long. In another couple of months, he started in our electric operations department. He's worked in our energy services for 4 years now, and now he's going to be moving back into our operations department. I'm telling Jeff's guys when to run the generators or not. He's going to be our manager of electric operations starting here in a couple of months when our vice president retires. So we'll start with Mike and Sean. I'll wrap things up.
great. Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. My name is Mike Cannon. I'm with the Member Services Group. I've been with the IMEA for going on 29 years, been in the electric industry 40. I did about 10 years in the Army Reserves, National Guard, different things like that, and Air Force Reserves. It's going to be, right now is our 40-year anniversary. In 1984, the municipal utilities were under a lot of stress because they used to have generation stations like you've got across the street. There were 5 stations, but the cost of operating them with the energy crisis in '73 was causing diesel fuel to go up. So they started buying electricity on the market and using these more as backup and intermittent stations, and for emergency use. Well, with the price going up on the market, they were under stress more because the investor utilities that they're buying from got into nuclear fleets. In Illinois, there were nuclear overruns. One utility was building a nuclear power plant that was supposed to be $400 million, came in at closer to $4 billion in 1986 dollars. So the utilities were looking at the municipals and going, they're small, we can put our thumbs on them. They can't negotiate against us if their legal fees or consulting fees would be high individually, and they're trying to pass on the the nuclear overruns to them because the Commerce Commission put a cap on what they could do. So the municipals got together. There were 42 of them in Illinois, and 32 of them are together right now with the IMA, and they got permission from the state legislature to go do what they call joint action. And that's where you can bind yourself together, issue long-term bonds, do long-term contracts, different things that a town necessarily can't do, but will save the towns a lot of money by allowing you to invest in power plants versus just buying 100% on the market. So you came in 1984, that's when Sean was born, that's when I started in the industry. So it's been a great model for you, and you guys were one of the founding members and started buying power from the IMEA in 1991 when we issued bonds, 30-year bonds to build a power plant in Trimble County, Kentucky. You guys were really smart because everybody else went 30-year bonds, and I think you had an option to go 10 or 15. So you paid on the house early, but you paid off the house early, and was very advantageous because the rates went down. You had a 138 interconnect that's got you a discount, and then you've got all these capacity credits that we give the city that Kevin will go into. Sort of their safety in numbers is kind of like the military. You know, one guy alone can't handle it, but you get 10, 20 guys together, they can do quite a bit, move the world. You guys have a position on our board. At one time, Myron Hard was our board president, and you guys have had a big sway on what we've done and setting our policies, and you set your future. We used to work with guys like Don Klassmeyer, Myron, Terry Malloy, different people like that, and they helped set us up. If you go to page, the second page, that's a map of our members. So we go tip to tip on the state, and you've got a lot of diversity economically and climate diversity. You know, we're
How many?
32 members.
32?
Yeah. And then if you go to the next page, I already covered that. I'll be able to see the table. And then this other page here is kind of a list of what we do. Our members said, you know, if we just wanted to buy power, we could get a power marketer to do it. We want to basically issue bonds. We want to have all these services that help make our life easier and make us more competitive. So some of the things that we do is economic development. My first project I worked with the city is the IMEA brought family video here. We met with Clyde Ray, and we basically turned the project over, did the introductions, and he got that done. We've done behind the scenes on a couple different projects in the past. A lot of them, as you know, they never arrived, but we still do the work to support the city. Let you do rate comparisons, different things like that. We also support, they want us to support local generation, like your generation assets there. You guys need that when the 138 goes down. We, as the IMEA, we pay for your fuel reimbursement, which is something a power marketer wouldn't do. When you guys went down to April last year for 5 days, IMEA gave you guys a reimbursement on your check for over $200,000. In a normal town, if they weren't part of the IMEA, would probably end up having to eat that. We do other things on there. We do energy audits. We've done energy audits for ACE at no cost. We do it on behalf of the city for ACE hardware, LCA enclosures. The place, the library, we went into BOGO's, we went to Schneider's, all the schools, our bank. I mean, we've done quite a few of those. And then on top of that, we have energy efficiency money. And right now, you get about $25,000 a year, which is your proportional share of that, and you get to invest that how you want in different energy efficiency programs, like street lights. It's public good, saves you money on your electric usage, plus it saves on your maintenance, so they don't go out as much. It's almost impossible for a kid to shoot it out with a BB gun because they got to hit every little thing. So there's a lot of advantages to it. The list here, and I don't want to go on for all night, but there's a lot of things here, and Jeff can speak on our behalf on the stuff that we've done to help the city. With that, I'll turn it over to Sean.
All right, guys. I'm on the next page with the picture of the Apollo here, and I really wanted to kind of talk about how our agency is set up and how we've been in the past and how we're looking to be set up in the future. And there's really kind of 3 supporting pillars that support the whole house for us, and that's affordability, reliability, and sustainability, and they're all kind of equally important to us. So affordability first is kind of self-explanatory, but it's trying to keep the rates to you as cheap as possible. Our utility is a nonprofit utility just like yours, so any savings that we see flows back directly to all of our members in the form of lower rates. And our power supply costs today are actually lower than they were 10 years ago, which, you know, it kind of speaks to the value of the model that we've set up, because there's not a whole lot of things today that are cheaper than they were 10 years ago. Reliability and predictability. For that one, you know, the most important job is making sure that the power is flowing to you 24/7 to your city gate, so then your local utility can take that and make sure it's flowing to you, your utility customers 24/7. Kevin talked about how I worked in our 24/7 operations department for about a decade, and I'll be heading back there soon. You said I was on a 12-step program to get out of there. Well, I've fallen off the wagon, apparently. But they work a lot with Jeff and with his guys to make sure that if there's a problem that's on Ameren side coming into the town, that we get that diagnosed and make sure that we kind of hold them accountable to get that fixed as soon as possible. We also help with the dispatch and you know, the local generation assets coming on and help coordinate those things from our side as well. For sustainability, obviously I think everybody's kind of aware that the power grid is undergoing kind of a big transition right now, both in terms of the generation sources that kind of traditionally have powered us to what's coming on in the future, and the transmission system and the build-out that is needed to kind of continue to support that growth. We're very in favor of that transition, but we're also very in favor of doing it responsibly and in a way that the sustainability pillar doesn't jeopardize the other two pillars, the affordability and the reliability. We'll talk here in just a minute about what our portfolio looks like and kind of some of the things that we have planned for the future. So on the next slide is this chart with these red and blue bars. This one's kind of an important one to us. This is, I mentioned on the last slide that our power costs are lower today for our power supply to you than they were 10 years ago. And this is kind of a visual representation of that. So you see that those bars are separated into blue and red, and that's separated into the power supply portion in the blue, and the red is the transmission costs, which is kind of the cost of getting the power from where it's generated to your front door across Ameren's transmission system. That's a pass-through cost. So we interact with them a lot to try and keep that as low as we could, but no matter who supplied your power, that would be part of your power bill, those pass-through transmission costs. But the blue bars represent what we directly can control with our power supply. And as you can see, there's a black line that runs all the way across that grid. That's the 2014 benchmark. So that's that first pillar where the price was. And you can see that that blue part of the bar, other than in 2021, which directly as a result of COVID affected pretty much everyone in a negative way, but other than that year, that blue bar doesn't touch that black line, which means our power supply cost has been lower than it was in 2014 every year for 10 years. And like I said, part of that is due to the fact that our portfolio is built in such a way that anytime the market spikes, not only are you not subject to that volatility in the market, but it's usually beneficial to our favor because we own and operate a lot of the resources that supply your power, and in times when we don't need all of that to supply your power, we're selling it into a favorable market, and with us being a nonprofit as well, all that money's coming back directly to lower your rates. So that's why you can see some of the great performance we've seen, and then our projections are to continue to remain that way for the years to come. The next slide is an example of some of that volatility I was talking about. Certainly in the last couple of years, there's been a tremendous amount of volatility in the electric market, and I'm guessing that your citizens haven't seen as much of that as some of the surrounding towns who may be served by investor-owned utilities. And that's, again, directly a result of the way that our portfolio is set up with these ownership of these long-term assets, so that when prices on the market spike, when prices start to get much more volatile, most of our power supply isn't exposed to that at all. So most of our power supply to you is business as normal when it's choppy waves for everyone else out on. Excuse me. Got one more slide. This is what our portfolio looks like today, along with some of the short-term things that we're going to be doing. So you can see we've got the renewables right up here out front. This photo is a photo of one of our behind-the-meter solar farms that we have in Rantoul, Illinois. And we have actually 6 of those online in several of our different communities, and plans to add several more currently, including one here in Princeton, a 1 megawatt array here in Princeton that we're very close to getting moving here. We also have another solar farm called Big River Solar Farm that's 25 megawatts that will be taken, and that comes on, it's already online, but we start to take power from them at the beginning of next year. We have 2 major wind projects that are just a bit north and west of here, and that's a total of 120 megawatts in your portfolio. We do take power from Prairie State Generating Company in southern Illinois, in Marissa, Illinois, and Trimble County, which is 2 coal-fired generating plants in Trimble County, Kentucky, outside of Louisville. We have a little bit of hydropower in Peru and Rock Falls, and then anything else that we need, we either do long-term contracts for little bits and pieces at a time when it financially makes sense, or do real-time market purchases. So it's kind of where your power comes from. But again, most of our portfolio is built in a way that your resources are owned by the agency, which means that they're owned by you and your other members as the agency, and it provides that stable power. And so Kevin's going to talk a little bit about kind of why we're here, asking you to extend the relationship now as sort of a direct result of owning those long-term resources.
Thank you again. My name is Kevin Gate. I'm the president and CEO of IMEA. I've been in the power supply business for about 38 years. I grew up in central Nebraska. Spent 24 years out there. I've been here for approaching 13 years, about 12 and a half years. I've been here working in Illinois. In addition to some of the power supply things that Sean was talking to, we have 19 of our 32 members own and operate their own municipal power plants, similar to what you all do. I will tell you, you have a very, very good power plant when it comes to that. It has to do a lot with, I'll give this guy over here some credit for it. We'll also give some credit to the folks that operate that power plant on a regular basis. There have been times you've had to run that thing for days on end. Mike talked about the April 1 of last year. There was another time we had a 138 kV transmission lattice tower drop into the Illinois River one time. That was an interesting thing to kind of walk our way through. So that continues to be important, not only to us, but to your community, to make sure that the lights stay on and keep that reliability up. So with regard to our current IMEA contract, you all entered into that in 1991 when we issued those bonds. And that currently expires on September 30th of 2035. And you might say, well, that seems like it's a ways away. Why are we talking about that today? We'll get into some of that. But with that, we believe we have the clearest path to, again, the most affordable, the most reliable, and the most sustainable resources to serve your community over the long term. Again, those of you that have been around here a long time, you remember that the investor owns deregulated back in 1997, and they in essence said the market will provide for those people that decide not to own those generators anymore. The municipals and the co-ops stay to that cost of service basis like in most other states of the country, and in the long term that's paid dividends for the municipals and the co-ops to be able to do that. We're not just planning for the next 2, 3, 4 years. We're talking for the next generation of your community moving forward, and the resources we have are set up to be in very good shape for that next generation for your community. So you have the generation, you need that. As Sean and Mike both alluded to, we're member driven. We have a board of 32 members. Jeff sits on our board. Jeff's been actively involved in our board, as was in the time I've been here, as was Jason Burke. And so very, very appreciative of all the time and effort they put towards that. One of the things that when our contract in 2035 ends, that's when our bonds are paid off. We're not anticipating at this point in time issuing any new municipal bonds to be able to provide any of the things we have right now. We're likely going to be looking to be able to refinance some bonds a year from now. We have an opportunity to do that, hopefully lower some of those costs to move that forward. But as those bonds get paid off, it's no different than paying off your mortgage of your house. Now, my kids say all the time, heck, Dad, living in this house would be pretty cheap if you didn't have that mortgage. Well, when you pay down that mortgage, that's paid off in 11 years from now. It's paid off in February of 2035. And at that point in time, what it looks like, I'll show you the graphic here in a little bit, on a pro forma basis, that looks like we'll have the opportunity to be able to drop your power supply cost by about 25%. Now, that's sizable for any of the communities. With regard to the advantages of IMEA, our agency has never been in better financial shape than it is today. We have, as Mike said, long-term resources. members that own and control your own resources, do a good job taking care of that. Affordable professional management. The entire staff that works at IMEA, we have a total of 32 employees that serve 32 cities. It's less than 2% of the entire amount of money that goes into paying your power bills, goes to pay for the salaries and the benefits for the staff that's there. In addition to that, we are the highest rated financial utility in the state of Illinois. And people go, well, that's not all that challenging in the state of Illinois considering some of the other things. But we're in some cases a AA minus, in other cases an A+ rated utility. And encourage you, if you're interested in that, we can provide you with the most recent rating agencies information. They recognize the value we create to our members, and so do the bondholders that buy our bonds to be able to do that. There's a lot of Illinois entities, including State Farm, and a number of other folks that own a lot of our bonds because they realize the benefit that it brings to Illinois. We continue to understand that our agency isn't our agency. It's your agency and the 31 other towns that you're partners with. We're here to service that. I consider myself to be the general manager of the team. He's either the split end or the middle linebacker. You get to decide which one you'd like to call him when it comes to that. If you look at this, what I call a snake diagram, this diagram here is part of our sustainability plan. And so when you get into this, portfolio transition that we're looking at, you see all the things we've done over the last several years to increase our renewable footprint. So here we are in 2024. We just completed our 2050 net zero vision, our sustainability plan. We're continuing then to, as Sean alluded to, we're adding a number of solar projects. We're in the midst now trying to add another 100 megawatts of solar on our footprint, in some part of the state have not been able to complete that yet. Looking at technology such as battery storage capabilities, still very expensive technology, has some capabilities, but still has some opportunities that we'd like to demonstrate in a couple of locations first. But as you can see, as you turn the corner there and you get to that bottom row of 2030 and 35, we've got a wind project, the Lee DeKalb wind project, that's pretty much at the corner of Interstate 39 and Interstate 80. The Green River wind project, if you've driven from here to Rock Falls, you've driven right by your Green River wind project about 1,000 times. And so that project's been online now for about 4 years. It's been a very good project. But those contracts, they end in 2030. The Lee DeKalb ends in 2030. The Green River contract ends in 2035. So we'll need to be replacing those before we get to the tail end of that contract. And so in order to make sure that we continue to have power supply resources that you can plan on and schedule and set reliable rates for, we need to continue to evolve and continue to develop those projects moving forward. And then as we start to shut down through the Climate and Equitable Jobs Act from 2038, we'll be shutting down a portion of our per state generating. We'll shut down the entire generating station in 2045. And then the target right now is for our Trimble County project to be shut down in 2050. That remains to be seen. But again, as we all recognize it, and I say, in fact, we were in Washington, D.C. last week talking to our legislators about, I say to them all the time, we're understanding and supporting of going to a carbon-free footprint, but we need to do it in a responsible manner to make sure that we know that those resources that we're going to depend on tomorrow work the way they're supposed to work before we shut down the generators that we depend on today. And so that'll give us a period of time to do that. So again, the why now, that transition starts now. With the 100 megawatts, and I'll show you a little slide as we move along here, as we go out to try to contract with somebody for a 20 or 25-year contract, if by the time they get that thing online, there's only 8 or 9 years left, well, that's like paying for a mortgage in 8 years. That gets to be pretty expensive. And in that case, when you have a purchase power agreement, you don't even get to own the house anymore. You just have to pay for it all in that first 8 years. And so by contracting with somebody for a longer period of time, I'm relatively comfortable that the city of Princeton, Illinois is going to be in the power business in 2037, 2047. You're going to need those resources for that period of time. And what that does is give us a much better price, gives us more negotiating room, because right now some of those developers are saying, hey, I see your contract ends at the end of 2035. What are you going to do in 2036? Well, we're going to be able to sign these folks up and extend these contracts, and we need that. They need the security that we're going to have the customers and you need the security that they're going to be there to be able to finance and build these projects, just like we've done on our Green River and Lee DeKalb. So we're continuing to look at the longer term deals, provide a better price and more options moving forward. And so we'll continue to do that. But again, as the bottom of that slide says, it's kind of impossible for a plan for how many megawatts we need on that peak summer day or that peak winter night if we don't know who's in. So we've just begun this process. When that contract expires, you can see there in that slide there that we have a number of resources I just alluded to, the 2 wind projects and that solar farm. That'll be about 145 megawatts to replace. We'll be looking at that 100 megawatts I just mentioned, and then the Prairie State generators I just talked about. The typical renewable energy contract is generally between 20 and 25 years. That way then, if we get these contracts done by roughly 2025, we get some things laid in place. That'll give us an opportunity to contract with things up until 2045, 50, 55. This contract ends in 2055. It does have the capability of extending beyond that. Teresa might be the only one here at that point in time. Teresa and Sean will be the only ones here at that point in time.
We got a few years.
I think you got a better chance than him, but we won't get into that. But with that, then, as we continue to transition this, part of the other thing from a legal standpoint, your city attorney recognizes this. There's limits on the length of contract that a local government can have with any other entity, and it cannot exceed 50 years. Guess what? You get to 2000. You started in 1984. You get out to 2035. 1985. You get out to 2035. There's your 50 years. So this is a brand new contract, as we talked about before. When we look through that contract, it looks miraculously very similar to the one you already have, because it creates the framework for the board to make those decisions, to have the staff go execute on those decisions, and then we meet generally 6 or 7 times a year. We meet every other month. Our executive board meets generally every month to be able to update the board on the various things that are going on. And as Mike said, we're not just involved in the power and transmission business. We're involved in just about anything that the city's got involved in when it comes to electric systems. Our statewide association helps with mutual aid and training and helping with the solar net metering credit things and all those other things that go along with that. So those are things that we do on a regular basis outside of just getting the kilowatts to the front door. You see that slide number 16. There's the little graphic there, this model of looking at the little graphic there shows about adding this 100 megawatts. Under our current contract, again, the longest we could likely get a contract with that with somebody was about 10 years. This information in the middle, it shows about $53 a megawatt hour. That's getting a little stale right now because we're seeing considerable increases in the cost of renewable energy over the last couple of years. But the numbers we were looking at when we were talking with our board about this was in that range. But if somebody to compact that down, they're going to need to collect most of that money during that same short period of time. Instead of collecting over 20 years, you've got to collect it over 10 years. So instead of buying it at $53, it costs $83. And so if you look at that in the whole, over a 10-year period, that's $58 million to our membership. Well, that's $5.8 million a year on average, of which you get to pay your pro rata share of that. And so, again, do I think that Princeton and 32 other cities that are own and operate their own electric systems in 2040 will need solar power to serve their customers? You bet they will. And so in this case, what this is designed to do is to take advantage of having the length of time to be able to contract and get the best price, the best resource, and the best location. And so you can see then you can see that the red line that shows if it was at that $80, the green line shows if it was at $53. That looks like it's a little tiny amount of money. It's $58 million over 10 years. So a sizable issue that would be there. So as I said, flipping then to the issues of the new member contract, the contract form looks materially the same. In fact, there's a guy sitting in the back of this room that was on our negotiating team with our membership. Jeff Mangrich was involved in that. We picked 6 members through our membership that were actively involved, some with generators, some without generators, some from the northern part of the state, from the southern part of the state, some from the ComEd land, some from Ameren land. Jeff was involved in this team to be able to do this. And again, it's worked well for 40 years, so if it isn't broken, why drastically change it? This has the board has the opportunity to make those decisions, evaluate those choices that are out there, and move forward with what makes sense. The rates and charges are pretty much the same. If you go back and look at it, I make sure. Hopefully, we've made sure we didn't use the term postage stamp rates. Some people in our industry use that term, meaning that you pay your load ratio share of all the expenses. If you're 2% of the entire load, you pay 2% of the bill. If you go up, when you get all these across the street, you go to 2.5% or 3% of the total cost, you're going to pay 3% of the cost. And if you've ever taken a look at our wholesale power bill, it breaks it down every single month in grave detail on that back page, exactly what charge went to what column, and then how it breaks down from the calculation of what gets charged back to you. But again, we talked about the services and the like, and as Sean alluded to, over the last several years, we've been performing about 5 to 7% less than what the pro forma budget looked like. And some of that, there's a lot of combinations for why that's the case. We're just expecting to end this year about 3.5% less than what the pro forma budget was. We just approved our budget for next year. Several years in a row, it's never easy to beat the budget every single year. And but what I can assure you is, unless something catastrophic happens at one of our power projects, we should be pretty close, if not better than that, on a regular basis moving through. Again, that contract length, as I mentioned, is 20 years. It would start on October 1st, 2035. And you may wonder, why does it end? So I got a typo here. It's actually May 31st of 2055. And you may wonder, why is that the case? Well, the regional transmission organization that we're involved in this case, it's in MISO. That won't be on the quiz, by the way. Their planning years start on June 1st. And so if you start or end a contract anything other than June 1st, it's an administrative nightmare with the people that work in Indianapolis that balance the grid in this region. You're way at the north edge of the Ameren, Illinois system. So you're way at the north edge of what's called the MISO, that's Mid-Continent Independent System Operator. And then across the road, not very far, is where ComEd, of course, is. And they're involved in a different RTO, Regional Transmission Organization, called PJM, Pennsylvania, New Jersey, Maryland. That won't be on the quiz, I can assure you that. But it is on our quiz every day, because it's almost like doing business in two different countries when it comes to that, and all their acronyms are different, and et cetera, et cetera. So again, that 20-year contract, what it does is it allows to plan for the next generation of your community. That's what's important here, is to plan and make sure that you see what's coming, know what's coming, take advantage of what's there, and then take advantage of the resources that you have in place today that are going to provide that long-term stability. One of the things that we've done in this contract is allow our members to do something called member-directed resources, or MDRs. And what that would allow is if Princeton decided, if you wanted to put solar panels out by the interstate, you wanted to put a wind turbine or two up around here, up to 10% of your city peak, you can put nameplate there that you could self-provide that. And we've gone through that. Jeff's very familiar with that. I think your city attorney's gone through that as well, understands how that would work. We don't expect a lot of our members to be interested in doing that, because what I can't really think is, I think most of you all like, well, isn't that what we contracted with you guys to do for us, is to build and develop these projects? But if you have a local thing that you want to do, we've got a couple of folks that are interested in self-developing some local projects. It gives you the capability of doing it, but you're not required to do anything. I would expect that out of our 32 cities, I might expect three of them may be interested in the near term to do that, but at some point in time, over that 20-year period, they may decide they want to do that. So it gives them the capability to do that. And basically, it would be treated from a financial standpoint very much like we treat your municipal power plant. You have that deal, you have that contract, you have those costs, and then the value you get back from that is whatever the capacity value that we can get out of the RTO market, the Regional Transmission Organization market, and the energy value of that when it produces. So again, if you tell me that in this last winter that we had $2,000 a megawatt hour power on the Martin Luther King Day, and your solar panel was putting out zero, you don't get paid when it wasn't producing. But whatever it produces during that hour is what you get reimbursed for that cost, for that value of that back to that. Again, I think Jeff and your city attorney are familiar with that. But again, I don't expect that a huge amount of our participants would be able to do that or be interested in doing that now, but it gives that option to do it. There's nothing mandated there about it at all. So now with all that we've gone through with regard to capacity markets, if you think you understand what happens next in the generation capacity markets, I'd like to talk to you after the meeting because there's lots of volatility. You see that chart on the right-hand side? You see the chart on the right-hand side, the red and blue one. The red one is what it cost in the ComEd region. The blue one was what they call rest of the system in PJM. And the black one was what that capacity was worth in MISO, in Princeton. And so when you start looking at those numbers, you see that $1.50, $10, $3, $5, and that shoots up to $237. Right now, if you see on that left-hand side, you've been getting about $105 flat for a long period of time. One of the things that we're going to be doing here over the next year and a half, is our board's going to be reviewing the compensation that we're providing to the member generators. And so it's very likely that number, the $3.20 per kilowatt month, will go up, or the energy reimbursement will go up, but it's got to be based upon what those true costs are to be able to do that. And so what this new contract guarantees then on the capacity, so the first thing was your power supply contract. Now I'm talking about your capacity purchase agreement. Well, we lease the output of that generator that you have, all the generators that you have across the street here. And so in that case, what we're doing then is we'll guarantee you that number will never go below $3.20 or that $105 per megawatt day. I can tell you that what I do know is, having done this for 38 years of my life, if we paid you $3 or $5 per megawatt day, you'd shut that generator down a long time ago. Because that's the equivalent of, if you had a megawatt load, like a super Walmart you might see somewhere, that would be the equivalent of them paying you a demand charge of $1,800 a year, or $150 a month. I know all of you, including Pete and Teresa, know you can't run any power plant for $150 a month. You can't even get the guy to put out the smiley faces at Walmart for $150 a month. So that's what's caused a lot of this upheaval here in the state of Illinois. And so we're in the long game here, been able to take advantage of situations that are there for the benefit of our members. So we'll be looking at reviewing those things. But even today, the amount of capacity payments that we give to the city is about $1.5 million a year, and we've been doing that for roughly 40 years. So there's a lot of money that's gone into that power plant. There's been a lot of training that goes into the people that run that power plant, and your folks do a tremendous job of running that power plant. I don't like to find that out on April 4th of 2023 that says tornado just knocked out 40 of those 138 kV lines, and Jeff said, we're fine, we can run that power plant for as long as you want to. And sure enough, they did. Until Saturday morning when the guy says, how much longer before that thing's going to come offline? And it did that Saturday afternoon, as I recall.
And that evening.
But again, not very many power plants are set up to do that, but you're in a unique situation. And part of that is, again, you've had enough circumstances over the last several years where that one tie line that comes across the river, if it drops on the ground, you don't have a lot of choices. I can tell you that Amherst's working on doing some backfilling in some of their transmission facilities to be able to give you dual feeds here. That would be a benefit, but your power plant operators aren't that worried about it. I'm more worried about it than they are. Jeff's worried about it with me. So with that, in summary, IMA, you all were one of the founding members of IMA back in 1984. Promises made, promises kept. You promised 32 other cities you'd be a good partner, you'd do what you're supposed to do, you'd take care of your power plant, you'd pay your bills, you'd take an active part in that role. You've done a great job of that. So have your other 32 partners. You've been able to put together a quality power supply program quality staff, quality long-term plan to be able to plan for those. We continue to offer low-cost, reliable. Your power supply, again, that blue line, red line chart that Sean pointed out to before, that shows the stability of what your power supply rates have been to your customers. And so when you compare your rates to some of the rates you see for some of your neighbors that have gone all over the map over the last couple of years. So when you run into somebody and say, hey, how much was your electric bill last month? They said, I don't know. Why? Take that as a compliment. Because when you get to the point with everything else going on in our lives, that's going up and down and all over, if they forget how much they pay you, that's a hell of a compliment. And so the compliments to you all and your electric staff will continue to do that. You will continue to have a direct voice in what's good for your community and good for the nonprofit municipal utilities in this state. You will be involved in that board decision making. Our board makes every decision. We do have an executive board that gets together, but for the most part, they're just kind of grinding the details down to the recommendations of the full board. That's very limited, and any action that they take needs to be ratified by the full board when they get back together. So it's not, there are other similar organizations that have 30 or 40 members, and they may have 8 or 10 or 12 board members. Everybody that sits on our board has a vote. Jeff has been actively involved in it, as has Myron and Jason and everybody else. We share your long-term obligations to serve. We are a nonprofit. We're focused on your street, your main street, not Wall Street. Now, again, as I reiterated before, Wall Street likes our plan better than the other utilities in the state. I'm not trying to besmirch anybody, but they know that the municipal utilities in this state have done a good job, have provided quality products and services to our customers, and that's why we're a AA- or an A+ rated utility, which is higher than anybody else in the state. So we're interested in continuing those great results that we've had before, and we'd entertain any questions, or if Jeff would like to get up here and make a rebuttal, this would be his opportunity to make that.
Won't hear one from me.
And I'm not asking the guy that's got a gun, because we were just chatting with him a little while ago.
If you don't mind, then Kevin, if we could. So any questions of the council?
I noticed that one of the things that was in there was replacing a solar farm. So is there a lifespan to a solar farm then? It's only good for so many years?
Yeah, what you generally see is, now one of the ones that we've got is the one solar farm that I think you're referring to is we have a contract that starts with them. That thing just came online about a year ago, but we didn't think we were going to need it. We were going to want it sooner, so we started that in December of 2025. That goes for about 10 years. The solar farm generally will last about 20 years before you got to replace. First thing you're generally going to replace is the inverters, which is inverting it from DC power over to AC power. That's generally the first thing that would need to be replaced. But over about a 20-year period is pretty typical for that turnover. But candidly, we're still at the infancy of these projects going on. So 20 years is a pretty nominal thing. But the thing about that, I guess I would refer to it like a refrigerator. It's an appliance that you can unplug the other one, you put another one in there. That place over there is not like a refrigerator. You can't just unplug one of those generators and plug a new one in that easily. And if Jeff could, I think he would.
I'd be a millionaire.
You'd be a millionaire. So yeah, it's something that when you say replace it, once that interconnect there once you've got the wires connected to that solar farm, it's pretty common then that solar farm will be in that location for a long period of time. Just a lot of different equipment and it has to be replaced over time.
So you see the technology at all switching where you have the same amount of panels but no more megawatts out of it?
Yeah, I mean, yes, but I mean, they've really, the reason why the cost of solar has come, besides the federal subsidies, state subsidies have been attached to it, there has been a phenomenal amount of growth in the technology of solar panels to be able to make them cost effective where they are today. We've squeezed a lot of that juice out of that orange so far, but again, I don't know anybody that I think is smart enough to say there's going to be I think I do know some people that think they're smart enough to be able to say that we're going to get a quantum leap, more efficiency, more output of that. It's going to be a real challenge because we've really, again, with the current technology of the way the chips are made, it may be hard to do. There's still some there, but still not as much as we've seen from where we've come over the last 10 or 15 years.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions from the council?
This is more or less has to do with the manufacturing and supplies of it. I believe a combination of utilities to be able to produce to sustain any municipality is great. My only concern is there any lobbying from your organization? Because I know how state and local governments are. Sometimes they're not very, very good. As far as being able to manufacture, or let's just give you an example, during the time of COVID, when all supplies were limited, if you needed to that and you were actually working on some projects, will you be able to get those materials here to be able to do so? That's why I'm asking about if there's any lobbying for, with such a push for renewable energy within your organizations that are lobbying for those things to happen from our state and federal government especially.
Okay, so with regard to the lobbying for getting additional equipment, we're going to have as much or more access to be able to get the equipment as many of the vendors that are out there to be able to do that, because they're pieces and parts. You know, sometimes, in a lot of cases right now, they're coming from Southeast Asia, and so that's going to be being able to tie back to some of those vendors. But most of our stuff right now we're doing under contract. So that's that vendor's responsibility to do that. Hector, that's interesting. You mentioned, is there any lobbying that the municipal utilities are doing at the state and federal government? All week last week, I spent, or not all week, but a good share of the week last week, I spent in Washington, D.C. at the American Public Power Association legislative rally, speaking with both of our our federal senators and most of our House representatives. One of the things that's been that we've been working on with regard to renewable energy is the access to the tax credits that in the infrastructure bill of 2023, we worked like dogs to be able to get the access to be able to get tax credits just like investor-owned utilities got. That was granted in the infrastructure bill, and right now, without getting into too gory details, for some reason the Treasury thinks that if we're going to build a project, a solar project, that I have to, in order for me to get you all, to get tax credits for that, we have to guarantee that it was made 100% in the United States. I can't go to Home Depot and buy a swing set without, or a nut and a bolt to guarantee that it was made in the United States. If you're an investor-owned entity, you get if you can prove that, you get a 10% kicker on top of the subsidy you already get. Well, that doesn't seem like that's equity. Furthermore, then, if they say, but we've got an out for you, if you can prove that you can get it from somebody else, from a foreign place, at least 25% cheaper, so long as you can prove that that's 25% less than the other guy, the American supplier's cost, all you need to do is go to that vendor and get them to certify exactly what his cost was. Now, do you think very many vendors are willing to give you their cost that they know I'm going to turn into the Internal Revenue Service? Probably not all likely to happen. So I think we made some really good traction with Senator Duckworth and Senator Durbin's office last week about being supportive of that. One of the other things we've been working on, and I think you guys have done a good job because you've done a lot of good planning in advance, is to streamline the distribution, the availability of distribution transformers. Now, you probably haven't seen or heard any of those issues here because Jeff and his guys have done a great job of having things on stock. I live in Chatham, and our just like you guys got hit by a derecho here 3-4 years ago. I know you can always tell me exactly the day. For us, it was June 29th. It tore the hell out of Springfield and Chatham, that surrounding territory. And I am forever grateful to the communities that have helped us. And I know Princeton has gotten in their trucks and they have come. And what that means is if and when something happens to Princeton, people get in their trucks and they come take care of you. And so, but I forget what was that, 300 or something like that distribution transformers that had to be replaced, pull top transformers that had to be replaced there, that they had like 25 or 30 of them. So we were able to pull that in, so that's another thing that we're working with. So that's a long answer to, when it comes to legislative lobbying things, we're working very hard on those things. We're also working very hard at being supportive of having these things built in America, because if we're going to continue to go to a carbon-free footprint by 2045 or 50, we're going to need to have these things built in America, so we're not having to go to Southeast Asia and hopefully get them from places, people that like us.
And that's why I'm asking, because during that time frame, during the COVID years, we had a hell of a time trying to get simple things as even a mask or anything else. So, if there is lobbying to be able to get these things manufactured, to include the raw materials, because I know that most of them are manufactured or mined, most things are mined in Asia,
Yep.
in those countries, is we would almost need something here, so in case something happens, that we'll be able to supply not only our communities, but not within the United States as well.
Yeah, we're a pretty small organization to be able to do that, but we are actively involved in a number of different trade agencies. Again, the American Public Power Association has been very actively involved in those things. And American Public Power Association works very closely with their similar trade group that the investor owns called the Edison Electric Institute, or EEI, and then also NRECA, the National Rural Electric Cooperative Association. So we're all, in fact, most of the House and Senate members we saw last week is, you know, every one of you guys comes in and talks about these transformers and this direct pay thing. That must be an issue now. Well, I'm glad to hear you say that, because now this is, you know, we've been talking about this for 2 or 3 years now, and now's the time where if we get one big problem, not help us if it's not COVID, but if we get one big thing like that, we might get to the point. We've actually had some of our communities that have had to tell their customers that, you know, you want to develop this new warehouse on the north side of the interstate. We don't have. He does. We don't have a transformer that's big enough that's configured in the right way to be able to do that. And so we're seeing stuff as long as 2 to 3 years to get an old transformer. And so I would imagine when Pete and Teresa get somebody to come in and want to develop something, they're kind of looking at Jeff like, you got enough electrical interconnection capabilities to make this happen, don't you? In the past, he could go out and say, we can get it in a couple, 3 months. Now it's maybe 24 months. So it's something that's taking more of a consistent effort to be able to do that. So I would say we're fighting above our weight, and I'm a fat guy.
Any other questions from the council or comments? If I could I want to say thank you to Teresa and for Jeff for working on this. Obviously, you were on that committee to help discuss the terms of this. I want to thank you folks for being here tonight. I just would ask one question. Let's just say, because we really enjoy the fact that we have a power plant right here that and we have those pesky squirrels that cause most of our power outages. But if a pesky squirrel creates a power outage, 45 minutes later, give or take, we've got power back up and running, depending on what's going on. But do you ever see the time where we could have a major blackout in the United States, and all of a sudden they're saying to you, power up Princeton, but only minimal, and let's get all that extra juice going on the grid for everybody else? Would we be able to be assured that the city of Princeton would be powered back up before we kick the rest of the extra juice out of the grid?
Yes.
100% that we.
In fact, right now you're one of the community. You're the only community right now in our membership that has an agreement with Ameren to push back out on their system. Now, in most cases, and it's a planning thing and it's a safety thing. So, for example, if your load today is 15 megawatts, and Jeff's guys over there are running 25 megawatts, there's 10 megawatts that's got to go somewhere. Right now, you have the capability of pushing an extra 8 back onto the Ameren grid. Ameren came to us and came to Princeton and said, you know, we've got some areas in this region that the reliability isn't as good as we'd like it to be until we build out some of this transmission that they're working on. So they approached us to be able to do this, and every other one of our communities were forbidden from putting it out on the grid. And I don't, to the best of my knowledge, Jeff, you've never pushed out on the grid. So when you had a situation like you had last April, and the tie line's laying on the ground, and the people in the country are dark for 5 days, it was probably an economic development opportunity here because people were coming to town and staying in town and shopping at the local stores and all those other things. So, yes, that's really the focal point of what that power plant is designed to do. It's designed to provide that reliability. And I'm sure that there's a lot of young folks here that they get to the point where they understand that if the power goes off, now again, if you have a tornado or something like that, that's different. Because if the trees are laying all over the town,
Right,
or
absolutely.
derecho, like we were talking about. But if the tie line goes down, what is it, Jeff? Maybe 20 minutes to a half an hour by the time the power comes back on.
30 to 45, we
And
can
so,
call it down.
and so there's certain people that says, I don't know, power went off for a little while, and 20 minutes later it came back on. It must not have been a problem. 5 days later, he shut the power plant off because people just take it for granted. People get busy with their lives, and they're like, I didn't know anything different.
No, I think that's, we appreciate the presentation. So again, we appreciate Jeff's work on this. Teresa, do you have any comments, or should we move on?
No, I'm glad you gave that presentation because it walks right into the next part.
Well, we're here to answer any questions. But again, you all know, you know how to get a hold of us. We talk to Jeff and his team all the time, and so we're going to continue. We'll be back talking with you. We'll be providing you, Pete, with the information on the signing agreement for the solar project coming up. We're about this far away from getting that thing finally done with a new vendor, and it's so. I would have liked if it was a week from now. I might have been and said, "Hey, we've already signed this thing," and so we're within about a week of getting that thing signed and starting taking that thing off and moving down the road.
And Kevin, would that actually get construction started this year as well?
Yeah.
Okay.
The preliminary plan is for us to have substantial completion, not final, substantial completion by the end of the calendar year. As Pete and I were talking about before, we have a winter like we had this last winter, we could probably build panels all winter. But a lot of folks that are not from here say, we're going to be out there setting panels in northern Illinois in the middle of December. I don't think I want to do that. So, but again, that's the near-term plan. The outside plan is final completion by May. But once you get all the stuff in place, the materials are there, everything you need, it goes up pretty quickly.
And that's going to be like 1.3 megawatts?
It's about it's 1.3 DC direct current.
Okay.
It comes out at about 1 megawatt in total AC.
Okay. Well, we sure appreciate this. So Kevin, Michael, and Sean, if you just want to stick around for a minute, we're going to actually vote on this, right? And then we'll get you heading back to Springfield. Is that all right?
You got it.
Okay. Pete, if you would, now we're going to go on to ordinance, please.
Okay, so next on the agenda is ordinance O-24-003. This is an ordinance authorizing the IMEA power sales contract and a capacity purchase agreement. This is the first reading. Mayor, all council members have reviewed this, the contract and purchase agreement, and it is submitted for disposition.
I move we approve ordinance O-24-003 as presented.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any questions or comments from the council? Seeing none, clerk call the roll.
Councilmember Gomez,
Aye.
McCall,
Aye.
McCransky. Pardon me?
Aye.
Okay. And Mayor Mabry.
Aye. Thank you. Why don't you guys go ahead and sneak out of here and off the light? Thank you. Thank you for the presentation.
And no storms. No storms, whatever happens.
No squirrels either.
No squirrels.
Okay.
Thank you all.
Thank you very much. Yes, we're going to go down to the next ordinance, Pete. Please.
Next on the agenda is ordinance O-24-004. This is the first reading for an ordinance authorizing the sale of personal property no longer necessary or useful to the city of Princeton. Mayor, all council members have reviewed this ordinance and it is submitted for disposition.
We approve ordinance O-24-004 as presented.
Second.
Motion has been made and a second. Any questions or comments from the council? And I think you saw in your packet what we're selling is a bucket truck and a fifth wheel hitch and some Christmas lights. Holy smokes. Whew. How many, like 15,000 bulbs or something like that? 1,500, okay. We should have sold that to those guys before they left here. Okay, go ahead if you would please.
Okay, Councilmember Gomez,
Aye.
McCall,
Aye.
McCransky,
Aye.
Mayor Mabry.
Aye, thank you. Now we'll go to the city manager report.
That's pretty good. I didn't have anything formally, but I do just want to remind the council that next council meeting prior to probably about 4:30 is what I had planned to do the planning session, or budget planning session with council. So I hope to have all the numbers ready to go, pretty solid for you guys to look at and review the projects. And you should have all gotten the justifications, so you can review those as well. Just two other quick announcements. We will be starting very soon the interviews for our street sanitation foreman position. And then we will be posting, hopefully maybe even tomorrow, for the planning and zoning administrator position. So those two positions are moving along.
Good. Thank you. Thank you, Teresa. Let's see. Under Mayor's report, I have nothing tonight, and I know that we don't necessarily have any officially on Possibly Princeton, but having a backup generation system is a very positive thing, as we all know. So we thank goodness for that. Anything, Victoria, from you on tourism? Not trying to put you on the spot. That's fine. That's fine. And if I could, I know we're going to be discussing. We've got the tourism grant applications that are going to be going out. We have a different nonprofits ask about that.
Mm-hmm.
So we're about a month away from those being going out. Is that right, roughly?
May 1?
They're already out. They've been emailed to all past applicants. It's also listed on our website. They can download the form from our website as well.
Okay. And just
There are copies in the City Hall office, front office as well.
for those, right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Very good. Thank you very much.
Yep.
Let's see. That's it for me. And now we're going to go to old business. Right? Old business this evening? None? Is there any new business this evening? Seeing none. Okay. Now we're back to public comment. Anybody like to make any public comment this evening? Okay, we're very good. If you would, Mike.
Move we adjourn tonight's regular meeting and reconvene on Monday, March 18th, 2024, 6 p.m. at City Hall.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Clerk, call the roll.
Councilmember Gomez,
Aye.
McCall,
Aye.
McCransky,
Aye.
Mayor Mabry.
Aye. Thank you for attending, and feel free to stick around if you'd like to talk to your council members. Thank you.